Welcome. We are here at the start of a national movement. For every one of you here, there are probably tens of thousands of others that are not brave enough to join this call. This is how movements start, honestly, especially in the Zoom age, with people like you, ordinary Americans and employees determined to make their company and their world a better place. Now we're going to hear from Vivek Ramaswamy, the executive director and co-founder of Strive Enterprises, and the previous CEO of multi-billion-dollar companies. But I'd like to take care of some housekeeping first. First of all, you can post questions anonymously. You are anonymous. And you can even select an option to post questions to us anonymously. You can do that throughout the entire program. We will have a moderator who will be screening those questions, and I will be answering them. Secondly, the official program is 30 minutes, but I will stay afterwards to answer questions. But I promise, and it is my promise to you, that this program will end at 7:30. The official program. I will stay to answer questions, 7:35 at the latest. Okay, that is my promise to you. So without further ado, allow me to introduce to you Vivek Ramaswamy.
Thank you, Kenny. Good to be here. It's an honor to be with all of you. I think this is, the reason this event interested me is that I actually think the most promising avenue to drive change in corporate America is actually through bottom-up action taken together by employees. In the near term, that's actually the biggest change. I personally am working on a different avenue of change that focuses on top-down change to the cultural form of oppression that I think we see in corporate America today, starting with the large shareholders of public companies that tell CEOs what to do. That's a longer-term game. But I do think that we can change our corporate culture for the better, starting bottom up with the people who actually work at and constitute the lifeblood of the companies that provide the goods and services that make our country run. And I was just going to kick off today with, a reflection taking me back to when I was in second grade. I'm in Columbus, Ohio today, but I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I remember the moment in second grade when I first heard Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech for the first time. Y'all know that one well. It was the speech where he said that I hope my 4 children grow up in a country where they are judged not on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. And I'll tell you something, that dream, it meant something to me. It stuck with me because it was the dream that allowed my parents to come to this country years ago. My dad to build a successful career for himself at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio, despite the fact that he had a thick Indian accent. He still does to this day. It was the dream that allowed me to go in a single generation from being the kid of those immigrants who came to this country with almost no money to becoming the founder of a multi-billion-dollar company that I had the honor of leading as CEO. But I stepped down from my career as a biotech CEO, developing drugs, including one that's approved today for prostate cancer, to focus on this other kind of cancer, a new cultural cancer that I thought threatened to kill that dream that Martin Luther King had 60 years ago, that threatened to kill the dream that allowed people like me and Kenny and many of you to achieve what we have in the course of our career. And that was this new secular religion, this ideology that said that your identity is based on your race, your sex, or your national, or your skin color, your sexual orientation, or religion. And that, you know what, if you defect from that ideology, that actually automatically makes you potentially a candidate for being labeled the word that carries no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist. And it was a new philosophy. It was actually summed up pretty well by the likes of, for example, Ayanna Pressley, a member of the Squad in Congress, who famously said, we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. Objectionable stuff, if you ask me. But there was a new philosophy embedded in it, which actually said that, you know what? Your race is no longer about, for example, your skin color, but about the content of the ideas, the voice that you're able to exercise. And that means that if you disagree with that set of ideas, then that automatically makes you a racist at a moment when there's no greater damnation in modern America than to be called a racist. So when given that choice between pledging allegiance to this new religion that's infected a lot of our institutions, including corporate America, given the choice between pledging fealty to that religion and being tarred with the scarlet R, if we're to call it that, what happened was everyday Americans were choosing to bend the knee. And you mix corporate power, the dollars of capitalism, with that new philosophy, and what you create is a new culture of fear, where people are afraid of losing their jobs. People are afraid of being able to put food on the dinner table. Everyday Americans feeling like they have to choose between the American dream and the First Amendment, between putting food on the dinner table and being able to speak their minds freely. And if anything makes us American, it's the fact that we don't live in a country that forces you to make that choice. We're the country that allows you to enjoy both of those privileges at the same time. And so why do I think this is an important conversation today? I think we're coming off of a decade where even the most earnest proponents of this philosophy wanted to celebrate diversity, the things that make us different from one another. And make no mistake, our diversity is a beautiful thing. But I think that over the course of that decade, what happened was that as we celebrated and even fixated on diversity, including the skin deep attributes that make us different from one another, we forgot all of the things that ended up binding us together as one people. And if the last decade was about celebrating our diverse attributes and our diversity, I hope the next decade of our life as not only American consumers, but as American citizens and as citizens of Western democracies around the world, let it be about reviving those few things that bind us together as one people. And the thing that I put at the top of that list is the idea that you are free to achieve whatever you want, whatever dreams you want to pursue, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your sexual orientation, regardless of your gender, and that you are also free to speak your mind at every step of the way. And my commitment to this audience is the following: is that if you're in a training session in your corporate America, if you're at your place of work, at a school seminar, a parent-teacher conference, wherever you find yourself, when you believe you're the only person in the room who believes what you do, now more than ever, you have a civic obligation to speak up. And if you fail to speak up, at the end of the day, I think it's a failure to live out your civic obligations. But if you do and you're punished for it, then I'm going to leave you with one new legal theory that you can put into action in your place of work that actually starts with the civil rights statutes themselves. I think that the civil rights case that I'd like to see brought in the next 5 years is a case that says, you know what, when an employee is fired for his or her beliefs for failing to bend to that new corporate orthodoxy, that actually fails the religion prong of the civil rights statutes. And I'll close with this. I think it's a novel legal theory that leaves you with something in your toolkit to be able to pursue in your places of work. Works this way, where actually the civil rights statutes that prevent discrimination on the basis of sex, religion, national orientation, and now sexual orientation as well, but on religion in particular, say that obviously an employer can't fire an employee on account of their religious beliefs. But the flip side of it also says that actually an employer cannot force an employee to bow down to their religion. So the question is whether a lot of these postmodern orthodoxies, diversity, equity, inclusion agendas, et cetera, in corporate America, meet the Supreme Court's test for what counts as a religion. And as I've argued both in my book and in articles that I've written elsewhere, the test of modern corporate wokeness, the modern diversity, equity, inclusion agenda meets that Supreme Court test in spades. Certain words you can't say, certain apologies you must recite, a systematic worldview, not limited to just a narrow set of questions. This is a religion in every sense of the word. And we go through a lot of, in some of the articles I've written, which those of you can read, it clearly up and down meets the Supreme Court's test for what counts as a religion. And so just as your employer can't force you to bow down at a cross or to put your hand on a Quran and swear by it, neither can that employer as a condition for employment or for a friendly workplace or for a promotion force you to bend the knee to this new secular religion and orthodoxy either. It's an example of the kind of legal theory that I hope gives people that power to say that, you know what, when I am the only person in the room who believes what I do, I'm able to speak up to offer an actually diverse perspective. And if not, to backstop that with full legal force that you can ultimately take to the court of law. And I believe, for all the reasons I've laid out in some of my scholarship elsewhere, actually prevail and win. And I think it's that combination of both being able to be civil and respectful, but also in the court of law and elsewhere, strong enough to protect your kindness, that I think we begin to turn this tide for the better in the years ahead. So hope that was a mix of some legal complexity for those of you who wanted it, as well as a general view on what I think is why this is an important conversation. Kenny, I don't want to eat into the time and allow you to keep your promise of ending this at 7:30. But if there's any topics you'd like for me to close with, let me know, and I'd be happy to wrap this up as you proceed to the second half of the event.
Yeah, just another thing that employees can do is who want to find a space to work in a workplace that truly values excellence. Vivek's new company, Strive Enterprises, an investing firm that is invested in excellence-focused companies that don't conform to woke ideology, is hiring.
Yeah, so look, we are starting. You'll hear a lot more about this over the course of the year. So Strive Asset Management, it's a new firm that's basically bringing a different voice to the table in corporate America, where you have BlackRock and State Street and Vanguard, these large asset managers that effectively tell a lot of the CEOs to adopt these orthodoxies. Those are the puppet masters behind the scenes. What we hope to build is a new voice on behalf of everyday Americans and shareholders that brings a different voice to the table, that tells companies to focus exclusively on delivering excellent products and services to their customers over any other agenda, including any social or political agenda. And look, I've written a book. There's a long path that got us to where we are. But at the end of the day, what I'm most interested in is where we go from here. And I hope that revival of excellence, the unapologetic pursuit of excellence, the shared pursuit of excellence, is part of what defines our corporate culture going forward. And I have full confidence that everyone on this call joined here for a reason, because you're going to be hopefully a part of that revival of excellence in corporate America.
Good. Well, that's what we all believe here too. So let's move on to our next speaker, a speaker who wasn't on the agenda, but a speaker who you will be inspired by. He is a former American Express employee and one of the lead whistleblowers to our Un-American Express campaign, exposing the depth of wokeness in the company. And he's here to tell his story and why it's so important for employees to speak out. Ladies and gentlemen, Nick Williams.
Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate the opportunity to be on here. It's a little nerve-wracking. This is my first public forum to really let my voice be heard. I'll tell you a little bit about my background briefly. I worked for American Express for 8 years, from March of 2013 until March of 2021. And it was on March 25th that myself and 3 other of my supervisors were scapegoated by American Express for me following policy and protocol on setting a customer up who refused to share 3 months of utility bills with the company name on it and articles of incorporation. The client seemed fraudulent. I was following policy, as were my superiors. However, it was to find out that this woman's business was a small business ran by a woman who was African American. I didn't like the way she spoke to me. I didn't like the way she spoke to my African American colleague who I was mentoring at the time. But I would have done the same thing whether this customer was white, African American, Asian. It didn't matter what color, because the job is simple. The protocols and setups for a bank are very simple. And I would have treated anybody, and I had in my past, the same way. You are violating the blue box values of American Express, and this product might not be for you. And, I'll tell you that I was so shocked that this woman sent an email to the CEO of American Express, and the next day it launched a series of 73 days of KGB tactic interviews where I was put all on an island by myself, legal upon legal. I mean, American Express retained 11 attorneys, both internal and external, to conduct 73 days worth of interviews and email requests of me and my leadership about this African-American woman and everything else that was going on with this customer who was saying she wasn't being treated fairly. And, you know, it wasn't until I came across Color Us United. I fought all by myself. You know, I was offered a 6-figure settlement to sign a release of claims with American Express that started at $100,000 and it grew to $200,000 for me to shut up, be quiet, sign this, go on with your life. My supervisors did, but I didn't, because I'm an Eagle Scout and I was raised here in Iowa differently. My mother raised me that a rainbow needs all its colors. I'm a father of 4 biracial children. My wife's family are immigrants. They came from the Philippines. She was born on a dirt floor. So American Express, after a year of fighting them on my own dollar, spending actually over $100,000 in legal fees to let them know what you did was not okay, it finally, all the pieces came together when I saw Color Us United's campaign and the Rufo interview, where I realized American Express was giving hiring managers bonuses for firing white males and hiring African Americans or promoting. And American Express always gave raises on the merits of your performance and your leadership. I was #1 in the country for 3 out of 8 years. I received a chairman's award that is given to the top 1% of the top 1%, maybe once in a 25-year career. I got it 3 times, once from Ken Chenault and twice from Steve Squeri. But I realized that American Express was so woke and its agenda to promote a diverse group of employees and meet the metrics whomever has given American Express. They don't care. They ran over good people, good families, myself included. And most recently, it made up another big story and got rid of over 200 employees because the company is trying to get less white employees and more African American. It is actually un-American. The American Express card does not represent an American. Right now, I don't know what is wrong with American Express and other corporations, but they truly are the biggest violator from what I can see. And I've chose to speak out because others aren't in a position to do that. And I'm fortunate to have broad shoulders to bear this cross, to let American Express know, to be that catalyst for that lawsuit, that civil rights violation, that everyone should be treated the same, no matter the color of your skin. Don't train me in your CRT trainings that I have to be quiet and let my African American colleagues speak first. Don't do that. Everybody should be able to speak freely, and they should be judged on the merit of their performance and their leadership. So I'm launching a campaign. I am trying to speak up for all those voices who, for whatever reason, protecting your family, whatever that is, I understand that you might not be in a position to speak out, but I am. And I am willing to fight that fight so that not just American Express, but all the other companies are sent a very clear message. What is happening is not okay. So thanks, Kenny, for this platform. It's my honor to speak. I will also hang around if there's some questions related to my story after the call.
And you will have the opportunity to ask Nick questions, which is really, really great. Thank you, Nick. If you can mute yourself, Nick, that would be great. So an amazing story. And the comments that you guys are saying here are reflecting this. But what can you do, right? What can you do? As Vivek and Nick have showed, DEI and woke posturing does come with major downsides. You're firing your best employees. You're putting them through indoctrination training. You're destroying their leadership. Yet you, the American worker, have the opportunity tonight at this Zoom Fest to improve your workplace's policies and make them more fair and just. Here's what we believe as American workers. Here's a statement of our principles. The DEI people, they have a statement of theirs. Here's a statement of ours. We want a respectful civil workplace, number one. Number two, we want people to work together where employees respect each other. Number three, we want to turn away from needless division. And number four, you can trust your instincts and you can know what is right or wrong. You are in the right. These principles are good, more than good. They're the foundation of our country. And yet, right now, companies and CEOs are only listening to an echo chamber. They aren't hearing these principles being articulated. We want to help you articulate these principles in a way that is credible, that is totally from the source, that would convince any CEO that truly cares about workers that wokeness is painful and divisive. Announcing Labor Day Listen Down. This is our new Color Us United initiative, where you will urge CEOs to stop listening to the HR consultants and the media and listen down the corporate ladder to their employees opposed to wokeness. Color Us United has created a way that you can speak out and not be alone, and I'm going to introduce it to you tonight. Your voice will just be part of a national movement, and you won't even need to go public because your comments will be completely anonymous and joined by countless others in your industry. How do you do this? Here's how it works. Go to our Labor Day Listen Down page, which I will share with you right now. Here it is, our Labor Day Listen Down page on colorusunited.org. It's under initiatives, Labor Day Listen Down. Are you working at a company that requires you to attend training programs that focus on race and equity? If yes, you're not alone. Submit your comment. You can say your name if you want. It won't be published. You can say your company name if you want. The only thing that will be published is the industry that you work in. Agriculture, finance and banking, retail, technology, automotives. Then type in a comment. Type in what a woke workplace has done to you, your experience. Have you been passed over for promotion with your experience and performance simply because someone else was of a different race? Have you been exposed to being forced to put your pronouns in your bio? Have you been undergoing indoctrination trainings where you are not or pressured from speaking up because you are a white male or another unprivileged category and forced to exceed your viewpoint to other people, even though you know that you have the ability and the desire to work hard? Submit your comment here in your industry and you will be joined by thousands of others. Labor Day Listen Down, our new Color Us United initiative. And by the way, while every experience is unique, we know from our work, Color Us United's work, we exist to take on these woke corporations, that many of you have similar experiences. So if you have an experience that I haven't even mentioned yet, I guarantee you it's probably shared by hundreds, if not thousands of others in America today. So I'm here to tell you, and this platform is here to tell you and the CEOs, you are not alone. Joining your concerns will be hundreds, thousands of others who share your concerns with the state of promotion and hiring in your industry, and who share your viewpoint on what company culture should really be teaching. What we as Color Us United really want to do with our Labor Day Listen Down initiative is give credibility to your struggles by matching them with the voices of others across your industry and all of corporate America. Then on Labor Day 2022, we are going to be packaging your concerns, aggregating them, categorizing them, and submitting them to CEOs in a way that will get their attention, just like our campaign against Un-American Express got attention. Just like our campaign against woke corporations in America got attention, we will make sure your voice is heard in batches, in thousands of batches. But we need you to start these threads on our website. You, the attendees, We'll start these threads. Others can join in. Once they see your threads, more people will be inspired to speak out. You will be joined by thousands. Once people see, and employees in every industry will see this, they too will be inspired, and we will publicize it. And you can, and you will help to create a workplace that can return to its ideas, to its ideals. What is a workplace? What is a workplace supposed to be? It's supposed to be the one place where America and Americans came together to work together for a common goal. America was built on a foundation of ordinary people united by the task ahead. What united Americans was not race or religion or tribe, but the desire and the will to subordinate all that to make something great. That is the spirit of the American worker. That is the spirit that endowed our nation with such marvels as the Model T, the internet, the first rocket ship. Hands and minds collided, and parts were passed from hand to hand, each hand improving just slightly upon the last. That is the legacy of the American worker. The job of a business is the job of America, to unite us all behind the pursuit of something great and meaningful. Greatness can only come when people put aside their differences and trust each other. We are here today because we believe in that greatness, and we want to restore that trust. We are capable of marvels if we just put aside our differences and learn to work together. That is the message that CEOs should hear from Americans. So go forth on our Labor Day Listen Down initiative and remind our leaders of that time-tested principle. Thank you. Okay, I've introduced to you guys Labor Day Listen Down. We have heard from Vivek and Nick, who laid out the state of what our industry, what your industry could be going through today, and we're giving you an opportunity to take action. So I'm here to answer questions, and so is Nick, to answer questions about the state of our nation and anything else that you guys might have. So stick on, but the official program has ended. Thank you. I'm going to be taking questions now. All right, here's question number one. I know personally many immigrants or first-generation children of immigrants, Indians and Russians primarily. Almost universally, these Americans are bewildered by woke culture, censorship, and street political violence. Do they understand America's promise and fundamental freedoms better than legacy Americans? Well, it depends on whether they've been indoctrinated or not, right? Immigrants who come to this country, obviously they come to this country because they love America. Our waiting list is millions of people across the entire world, tens of millions. When people get into America, they consider it a huge lottery ticket because of our freedom and because of our opportunity. The problem is you stay in this country long enough and you attend the institutions that tell you that America is a racist country, and you get put through all of these DEI seminars and trainings, and then you start to question the premise of why you even came to this country. It's a depressing ideology. That's what critical race theory and DEI and equity really is. It's an ideology founded upon the idea that America is a racist country. So I would say talk to some of your immigrant friends in your company. I would say talk to some of your first-gen immigrants. If you want to feel inspired, first of all, about their story, you should talk to them. And then if you want to inspire them by saying, hey, you know, there is an organization out there that is committed to fighting racism, but is also committed to upholding real principles, right? We're not just fighting against racism. What are we fighting for? A race-blind America. We're fighting for an America where people work together and subordinate their differences in pursuit of a common goal. That's what we're fighting for. So that's Color Us United. That's why we exist. So there are many opportunities, I think, to interact with immigrants across this country about these issues. Okay. Okay, I work for employees. Sorry, one question here says, I work for government in a large US city. Employees can now anonymously report on coworkers for microaggressions, which only apply to non-whites. Do I have to wait for an infringement of my rights to challenge the policy? The answer is no, you don't have to wait for an infringement to challenge the policy. I mean, if you were going to sue the company, yes, you might have to be infringed. It's called standing. But if you just see that your coworkers are going through these basically KGB-like scare tactics where woke HR is going after employees for posting things on their Facebook that are mildly politically incorrect from 2 years ago, yeah, you have a right to call that out. And you should find somebody in your company who can be an ally in that. Now, I would, you know, contact us and coordinate with us, and we can help you potentially on how you can best approach your CEO about this. But the first step is to post that story on our Labor Day Listen Down platform so that we can get knowledge of it, and then we can help you however necessary we can. But you're right. This is a deeply illiberal anti-First Amendment policy. And this is antithetical to a corporate culture where disagreement is supposed to create innovation, right? You're supposed to be able to bring people together. They're supposed to disagree. And from there, diamonds are forged. Instead, you aren't given the right to disagree now, and now companies become weaker for that. Okay. Nick, do you see any questions that are addressed specifically to you?
I've been trying to answer the questions, Kenny, in the chat, but if anybody wants to hit something in the Q&A or in the chat, I'm trying to monitor them. And you know, one of the things I will say, as you're reading some of the questions, Kenny, is a lot of people have said their companies are doing the same thing. Some of them are overseas and their US-based companies are doing the same thing. Here's what I can tell you. Companies are smart. To retain 11 lawyers, and many of them from an external law firm for American Express, just to fabricate a story that really made me think it was more about this African-American woman who I denied service to. Sure, that was a part of it, but it wasn't about that. It was about its woke agenda. It was about right-sizing the workforce and getting its metrics in order. It was about getting rid of highly paid white males. And I didn't even realize that at the time. They don't want you to know what they're doing. And, you know, many people are saying, how can I speak up? What can I do? I go to HR, they don't listen to me. And that is where Color Us United's campaign and its unanimous spot is a great place for you to tell your story, because Color Us United and myself, we will represent you. We will make companies think twice by the time this campaign is over.
Absolutely. And that's the goal, right? To get to the CEO through genuine employee concern. And we want to do it in a way that represents you best. And that's what we've done with Nick, with American Express, and that's what we're going to continue in the future with you. All right, let's keep going. So one of the people here says, I'm a public school teacher. This is shoved down in the students' throats on a daily basis. Reading, writing, and math scores are in the toilet, but leadership ignores that critical issue. Is there a way corporate anti-wokesters can work with anti-woke teachers? We could be stronger together. That's a great question. Yeah, absolutely. Look, all this stuff stemmed out of the academy, right? Hopefully you guys understand that. If you don't, let me just briefly educate you. yeah, this was the critical race theory stemmed from Harvard Law School, education schools. This all came from education. The whole equity idea that is being peddled in your companies came from educational philosophy in schools, in public schools, because people were concerned about the fact that Black Americans were lagging in achievement compared to white Americans, even after they spent a whole bunch of money on addressing the issue, even after they bent over backwards to try to address the issue. The reforms weren't working as well as they'd like, and so they created equity. And so now they're going to say, we're going to force this statistic disparity to decrease, even if it means that no actual achievement has been given. So like, as one example, universities are now getting rid of SATs for admission because SATs are objective and it's hard to cheat on SATs. And because of that, they can they don't have to keep themselves accountable with the score gap. Everybody achieves the same. A's are easy to get in some schools. A's are so much easier to get. So that's just one example of how they're destroying the metrics of genuine performance evaluation in these schools. And now in these companies, they're attempting to right size some of these performance. You think that you're evaluated based on merit, right? No, at American Express, you have hiring managers have a 15% bonus if they hire in the preferred ratio of minorities and women. They do. Find out what it's like at your company. Really find out what it's like, because that's what it's like at American Express right now. So if you're a white male, sucks for you. You're not going to be promoted anytime soon, unless you speak out. And we need to express our opposition to these policies through this Labor Day Listen Down platform. Okay, let's keep moving on. What do you think caused the woke explosion to expand into the marketplace / corporate America? And do you think a potential economic downturn recession may focus corporate culture away from damaging woke elements and back on business excellence built to last? Okay, so there is, first of all, as much as wokesters would not like to admit this, there is no substitute for meritocracy. There is no substitute for somebody's skills, right? Somebody like Nick Williams, the #1 sales performer at American Express 3 of the past 8 years, is irreplaceable. You cannot replace Nick Williams with another Nick Williams if you fired Nick Williams, right? You are going to suffer a decline in performance. And so this is why wokeness is so anti-business. It's not even just anti-worker, it's just anti-business. It's anti-profits. We need to remind CEOs of that. If people stop working as hard, if there's no incentive to succeed, if people are treated based on their race and gender rather than their performance, if the objective measures of performance are taken away from society, then yes, we're headed towards a recession, and a sustained recession at that. Look at what happened to South Africa, guys. After apartheid, which it was a terrible thing. Apartheid was a terrible thing, but they put in all of these racial equity proposals that required X percentage of management, X percentage of business to be, and X percentage of farms to be of a certain race mix. And as a result, the economy of South Africa has stagnated for the past 20 years. And it was once one of the best places to live in Africa. And now it's nowhere near that. This is the birth of a new socialist, for lack of a better word, although that probably is the best word, stronghold on corporate America. And we have to fight back as employees. All right.
Kenny, I want to recognize an 8th grader who had asked a question. I think they were targeting it towards Vivek, but I think he's moved along. But the young person asked here, how can we convince young people and people of color to stand up against wokeism? And I have to say, as a white male, finding an organization like Color Us United that is led by an Asian American, an African American, and a Caucasian American as the key three staff members that do a lot of work to fight this fight. This is a glowing example right here. You know, racism is actually taught. It is taught to children, and children are born innocent. And so I love the question from the 8th grader, and somebody else asked a question about how can we keep our children from being forced to experience DEI in the classroom and trainings and education, you know, in the school. How do we push back against this? You know, as an 8th grader, you have a voice. You and your friends can go to a school board meeting and express that you're not okay with this. I did that at age 13. As a young man, I said, I got to have doors on the stalls of the bathrooms in my school. The women had them, the boys didn't. And I went and talked to the principal, and the principal didn't do anything. And so then I went and talked to the school board. It's leadership within you. It's your voice that society right now is telling you is not okay to have, but you have to believe in that voice. You have to believe that what you're doing is right. And you have to find those who have a similar voice and lock arms so your voice is louder. And to the parent who has a child in the classroom, run for the school board. I know we don't have time. I know we have activities, but what is more important than this right now? Stopping this. If you can't do that, your child can always step out of the classroom during that part of the day and sit in the hallway until that class is over.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Thank you, Nick. Hey, if you're going to have that conversation, if you're going to be brave enough to have that conversation with your CEO or your vice president, and you need somebody behind you, you can always email me. You can always CC Kenny Shu at colorusunited.org. It's actually KXU at colorusunited.org. Yeah, people are not going to like that. They're not going to like that leverage that you have over them there. All right. So given the indoctrination through the educational and corporate system, are we beyond the tipping point to reach Dr. King's vision? Dr. King's vision of an America where we're treated on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And my answer to that is no, we're not beyond the tipping point. And you are the reason why. We're seeing the pushback. We're seeing much resentment at these policies by common sense Americans who are not racist at all, who just want a place where people get along, you know, where we can go to our black and white colleague and we can say the same thing, and you know, we can say what we mean to say. We can tell the truth, you know, or we can give our opinion, and it's just an opinion, and it doesn't have to be viewed through the fact that one person is a white male and the other person is a black female, you know, or a person is an Asian male like myself. You know, we want that vision. And so, yes, we have an opportunity right now. You know, journalists have done great work over the past year at exposing DEI in corporations, but they're not getting change done because ultimately companies aren't listening to journalists. They're not listening to the Twitter sphere. They listen to their employees. And what we know is that even when Disney lobbied for that pro-transgender advocacy law in Florida, which, by the way, that means that if you work for Disney, you're paying for Disney to lobby that political opinion, regardless of whether you agreed with that political opinion. Disney did it because they felt that they had progressive employee pressure, right? There was employee pressure in Disney that told them that they could, that convinced them that they should do that. So we need a counter movement on the other side That's what we need to do. That's why we're starting Labor Day Listen Down. Okay. Why do CEOs promote DEI? Do they really believe in this? Or is this due to pressure from the woke crowd? CEOs in general are temperamentally conservative in the sense, I don't mean to say, constitutionalist. I mean to say temperamentally CEOs want to avoid risk, they want to, so they, right now, before this pushback, right, they saw pandering to progressive social causes as a form of arbitrage to them. What is arbitrage? Arbitrage means all benefit, no risk, right? Basically, if they pandered progressive issues, that would get the progressive lobby out of their hair for a little while that they can get those PR points for looking so woke. Well, now, what they don't understand and what the HR consultants and lawyers that were feeding them this messaging never told them, because perhaps they were too ignorant to even understand themselves, is that there are real costs of wokeness. And you know this, you, the worker, knows this. The elimination of meritocracy, the creation of more corporate resentment, right? The stifling of free speech, which in turn stifles diversity of thought, which in turn stifles a company's performance, are all eliminated under wokeness. But we need to make that public. We know we need to show these woke CEOs that is a concern, and that is going to hurt that is going to hurt their business. So that's why we need to speak up, because these CEOs, when they're doing their risk analysis, they think that wokeness is risk-free. It's not risk-free. Okay, somebody asked, I think that employers can be sued for racial discrimination if they don't have the same percentage of a minority as the percentage of the minorities in the country as employees, so racial representation. But that may not be fair, because there may not be as many qualified minorities applying for jobs there. Is this true? It is true. In some professions today, there simply are not enough people of certain races, to highly qualified people of certain races, to be represented nationally at the place where they're represented nationally, right? A common example is tech. In tech, this is the ratio of people who get PhDs in STEM-related, tech-related professions. This is just a proxy that I'm using, but it's 40% white and it's 45% Asian, and then it's 6 or 7% Hispanic and maybe 4 to 5% Black, right? So that if a tech company says we want to promote racial equity and equal racial representation, that means we need 15% Blacks and 15% Hispanics in our tech company. They're actually overcompensating in comparison to the talent pool. And that means that they are going to hire minorities who are actually less qualified compared to the other employees. And you know what that does? That creates more racial resentment, right? That does, because people are going to look at that person and they're going to say, well, this person is not nearly as qualified and is not nearly as high performing as the rest of the workers in this. And that's going to cause resentment, because everybody knows that we're only as strong as our weakest link in teamwork and everything like that. And people who have to constantly pull up a person who is not there yet could build resentment for them. So this is not good towards our country. This is not good towards our harmony. This is not good towards unity in companies. So we need to stop with those policies immediately. Nick, do you want to answer a question?
Well, I think it's a good question that was asked. Someone was asking about, finding like-minded allies and colleagues within the company. Everybody seems woke, but they realize that the silent ones are out there. And, this person's asking if there's any way to reach out, find like-minded colleagues to challenge these policies as a group. Making complaints anonymously, of course, is something this person's tried. And, what I would submit to you is that is the scary thing about what's happening, is so many people are worried to speak up because they have to put food on the plate at home. They're worried about their children and their family first and foremost. And that truly is why all of my colleagues signed the release of claims and took the money from American Express. I mean, millions of dollars was paid out to over 200 people to keep them quiet and sign a release of claims. And I was one of the only one that I know of that didn't sign it. And so it is hard. It's very hard, but slowly and surely, you have to put yourself out there in a safe way, in a way that that you can resist certain trainings, and know that if your company is so corrupt or so woke that you don't have another option, or you feel like it's never going to get any better, just know there is a better spot out there. There is another company, and that you do matter, and you have a skill, and you need to believe in yourself. The safety net and the insurance, unfortunately, is what keeps so many people stuck where they're at, living in a nightmare and hating going to work every day. But just know that if that safety net's taken away, that's the best way for you to get out, because you don't have another option. So you have to fight for what you believe in and find a place where you do belong until change happens.
Thank you for that, Nick. The next question is, how do we respond to workplace discipline if we say something wrong according to the woke culture? So the answer to that is, so I think one of the examples that people would bring up is, okay, you're in a team meeting and you might commit a microaggression, and then somebody reports you to HR for committing a microaggression, and they send their lawyers after you, and you're scared, so you don't speak up, right? What you should do in that situation is, it's tricky. It really is tricky. I would say, if it gets to the point where they're attempting to litigate against you for saying something, then you need to bring in, a lawyer. You need to bring in someone who can represent you, or at least like an organization like us who can help you with that. If you're in the extreme of that situation. But you say something politically incorrect, maybe you posted something on Facebook, on your personal Facebook and everything like that. You have a right to tell these people, this is my personal life. Like, you don't have a right to invade my privacy and hold me accountable for my personal life. You don't own me, you don't own me. And I think people are thinking, these HR people, they're thinking that they own these people because they're scary, but they don't own you. They don't own you, you have a right to say something. You have a right to say something. Now, if it's not well received, among the company, obviously use your typical social instincts that you've been cultivating throughout your whole life. But yeah, you have a right to make a few mistakes. You have a right to make a few mistakes in speech. Everybody does. And if it gets to the point where somebody really is attacking you for that, then you need to assert that right with an outside organization or outside counsel.
This is a good question here about how do you also get to the consumer in addition to the employees to get a CEO's attention. Why do employers only listen to progressive thought instead of conservative as they buy the products or services also? Is there a money trail for the CEOs? What I can tell you, my experience firsthand watching the change that occurred when Ken Chenault, one of the best CEOs of American Express, who was African-American, who ran an incredible company and had so much respect and admiration from all of his peers. When that change happened to Steve Squeri, he didn't have it in the tank, what he needed. He has been told how to think, how to run his company, what to do by stockholders, the board, I'm not sure who, but what I can tell you is getting to the consumer and other employees through a public shaming campaign like unamericanexpress.com is doing, that works. That's a marketing tactic that actually works, is publicly shaming a company and to force them into change. Is there a money trail for CEOs? Probably. There's probably stock options to perform the way they're told to perform. But there are CEOs out there who are challenging and who are running incredible companies who are not participating in this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a skilled employee, you have options and you deserve to be in a culture that accommodates that. I'm not saying leave your job. You shouldn't, unless, you should. But I am saying that you deserve to be treated with respect in your workplace. You deserve to be treated as an employee, should be treated. And so you have a right to make your case. If HR tries to crack down on you, go further up, bring other people around you, do the things you typically do. And if people are continuously harassing you and trying to break yourself down, that's hard. It's hard. And I've definitely experienced that in my life. But find a community of friends that can help you to stand up to that. Find Colorists United. Find people who are willing to talk to you about these kinds of things. And, you need to know that you are in the right. You have a right to say what you believe. Okay. Well, this is a great question because it's exactly on that. One of my challenges is finding like-minded allies and colleagues within my company. Everyone seems super woke, but I know the silent ones are out there. Does anyone know if there's any way to reach out and find like-minded colleagues to challenge these policies as a group? I have made complaints anonymously. Hey, that's a great question. The answer is over Zoom, probably not. If you're working in a virtual workplace, probably not. This is one of the problems with the Zoom workplace, is that things get so authority centered. Like the moderator and the host has all of the power. As you can see, I have all of the power on this Zoom chat. I don't have to answer anything, but I do because I'm benevolent. When you're in person on a workplace, there are many ways that you can find out about somebody's orientation, and even just testing them out, right? Just testing the waters, say, hey, I don't think like companies should be about politics, or I believe in free speech or something like that. Sit down, have lunch with somebody. You can suss a person out, especially a silent person. If they're silent on political issues, that usually means that they are not super woke. Look, most employees are not super woke. You should know that. You should see that. You should acknowledge that. Most employees are not super woke, and they might have a different political opinion than you, but they're willing to talk to you about it, But yeah, go and talk to people in the workplace, get lunch with them, and cultivate some relationships. And you only need, one or two really good ones in the workplace, and to really get a to be able to weather and even speak out and advocate for yourself in that environment. The point of wokeness, by the way, is to isolate you, right? Is to say there's nothing but woke. It's a totalizing ideology. So that's why you need people who are around you, who can stand around you, your family, your friends. Don't make work your life. especially at woke work. So I've noticed many corporate level employees eager to move up the ladder will embrace woke ideologies internally, but would not want the public to know about their actions. Would there be a way to do a LinkedIn for managers pushing woke ideologies? Higher ups may be more willing to speak out if their future job prospects may be affected. Okay. Not exactly sure what you're asking in terms of a LinkedIn for managers pushing woke ideologies, but your first point is interesting to me because it falls in line with what a lot of, especially people of my generation, I'm fairly young, people of my generation are doing in terms of wokeness, as in they're using wokeness as a ladder pusher to push them up the ladder. You can look so woke. And by the way, this comes from college admissions. If you guys didn't know, people are basically trained to say as woke things as possible as they can on their college admissions essays, because some guy wrote Black Lives Matter 100 times on his Stanford admissions essay and got into Stanford. You know, and that's true. Look it up. But yeah, you know, people are very cynical. You know, people will cynically use wokeness to move up the corporate ladder. And the best, you know, this happens a lot. You can see that life is not fair. You know, and people will try to be on that side of things. But one thing that you could do to push back potentially is to push back in just like a subtle way, you know, just a subtle dig, everything like that, is to just be humorous about it, you know. Just be humorous about it. Just, you know, talk to your friends, you know, just let them subtly know that, you know, wokeness is inauthentic. Wokeness is cynical. Wokeness is spiteful. And people will respect you more for being authentic and true to yourself than for cynically embracing the ideology of the authoritarians. Because people are not stupid. People are smart. They respect, you know, people who are willing to sort of play a jester and challenge authority. So if that's your personality, I would encourage you to go out and do that. It's a lot of fun. My company's HR department says they only hire based on merit, but we also have a DEI council. The way I understand it, merit and equity are on opposite sides of the spectrum. Are they lying, or is there a way to use merit and equity in hiring? The answer is no. There's no way to both be a meritocracy and to have equity in hiring, okay? Meritocracy says we don't care about your race or gender or anything. We're just going to hire and promote you based on your performance, right? Which is what we think it should be. Equity says we are going to ensure that your race, that our company is made up of people of a certain race, of X percentage of people of a certain race or X percentage of a certain gender. That's equity. It's impossible to have both meritocracy and equity because, as we know, different races, different genders prioritize different things just naturally in life, even in the absence of discrimination. You know, women, for example, will tend to pursue a different set of careers than men. And Asian Americans in this country tend to pursue a different set of careers than Mexican Americans. That's just what it is. And so if you say we want equity in our company, you're basically saying we have to discriminate against one group in order to make room for another group. So no, you cannot have merit and equity in hiring. And if somebody, your company's HR, by the way, American Express says they only hire based on merit and leadership performance, which is a complete lie, because we have on our campaign, unamericanexpress.com, which I would encourage you to look at tonight, unamericanexpress.com, we literally have the documents that show that they give bonuses to hire on the basis of race and gender. So if your company has a DEI council, that means they're not hiring and promoting based on merit. That means that they're pushing an ideology based on equity. What about mental? Okay. All right. I think I got room for like 2 more questions. What about mental health professionals who do not agree with race essentialism? So basically do not agree with critical race theory and so-called gender affirming care for children and adolescents. I spoke out and now walk around with a massive target on my back. Quietly, lots of people contacted me on the sly with messages of thanks for saying something. How do we navigate the companies and licensing boards? That's a good question because you bring up licensing boards. What we know now in medical schools is that they're pushing transgender medicine to a very unhealthy extent. It's now required on some final exams. You're required to, study and answer questions about transgender medicine, whether, and I heard 2 doctoral candidates the other day on a bus spend 30 minutes talking about transgender questions for their final exam. If the licensing boards get woke, that's tough. That's an issue. That's something that's something that we as Colorless United need to think about ways to do targeted campaigns for. I would say, I would say, if you are concerned about your reputation for speaking out, you can always do so anonymously through our Labor Day Listen Down initiative, right? This is why we're offering this alternative, because we wanted a credible place where people can post their concerns and remain anonymous while being blanketed in the safety of others. It's easy to deny one anecdote. It's much harder to deny it when it's hundreds, especially of people in the same industry, especially people reiterating the same story. Post your story, make it as detailed as possible. We will use that to help you and to help your industry, honestly.
Hey, Kenny, I think this might be a good one to end on. I don't believe you answered it. Correct me if I'm wrong. The question is, the energy industry has gone over the top with DEI. How do I push back on the item they want me to train others on that I personally don't believe in? The level of aggression on forcing others to support things they don't agree on instead of agreeing to disagree in a respectful way. I think it's a good question because this is like a way that this virus is spreading by managers being asked to train and not being equipped to push back or not train on that topic, and not train on how the company gets better at what it does. It's training on these agendas. Can you answer that question, Kenny?
So the energy industry is adopting DEI practices?
Yeah, and just asking this person to train others on things that they don't personally believe in, and how do they push back?
Oh yeah,
respectful way.
What they personally believe in. So we did a survey. Colorless United did a survey like a month ago about DEI trainings, and it actually showed that 61% of employees, so a majority of employees, supported the concept of DEI trainings, which we were unhappy with that result, but we go with what the polls say. People seem vaguely supportive of DEI trainings. They think it may make them like a less racist person or something like that, or at least they don't complain about it too much. I think that there are some really radical DEI trainings out there that are really woke, like what American Express did. They called capitalism racist. They brought in a professor to talk about how capitalism was built on, slavery and everything like that. And then, the question that we should ask in return is, well, isn't American Express a capitalist company? Where was I saying with that? So I was saying, if you're DEI, you're getting trained and you have to take like 2 hours a month doing DEI trainings, and it's relatively innocuous. It's harder to attack that. I wouldn't necessarily focus your energy on that if it's not truly and significantly harmful. If it's just about getting along, that's fine. I think that, I personally wouldn't want to be subject to those 2 hours, but in companies, you're subject to things that you don't necessarily want to do all the time. So I wouldn't necessarily make that the focus. But if you feel that the indoctrination really is rampant, then yeah, refer to us, or talk about it on Labor Day Listen Down, or talk about it to your friends in your companies, and or politely maybe ask a countervailing question at one of these seminars that just very politely but also firmly, addresses or asks one of those things. Be a leader. You have an opportunity to be a leader. No matter where you are in life, no matter where you are in your company, you have an opportunity to be a leader. Nick Williams was one such leader. He always spoke out, for what he believed in, what he believed the company should be. Why? Because he loves the company, right? You will earn respect. People will come up to you. They will respect you for this. This is what we know. They will come out, and respect you for that. So go ahead and use one of those DEI trainings as an opportunity to be a leader. And I think that is good for today. Thank you so much, guys, for coming here. I'm going to, if you want to follow up, go and email me at kxu@colorusunited.org. You can follow up with me with any other questions that y'all have. But definitely go to our Labor Day Listen Down page. Write your story, write your comment, be part of that movement. You will be joined by hundreds, and we will release that on Labor Day weekend to show CEOs to listen down to their employees, stop listening to HR consultants and DEI officers. And you will support and you will become a part of the fight for what companies should be, a place where people subordinate their differences in pursuit of a unified common goal. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out here today. Kenny Xu, Color Us United.